All right, guys, welcome in here on this Monday, a new week in college basketball. We got 48 games scheduled. We got a bunch already underway here as very big for the early season tournaments. That's the time of year we are in, since it is, of course, a holiday week. Thanksgiving just around the corner. A lot of early starts here, but a lot of big games coming up, and we're going to do our best to tackle some of the big ones. We'll do it with the one and only Bryan Leonard in the house, ready to roll here today, as is Adam Trigger on this holiday week. I can't believe it's that time of year, gents, but that's exactly what it is. It's that time of year for these holiday tournaments, and a couple of big games tonight we'll start with. And why don't we take a look at Colorado and Michigan State? Seems to be a lot of folks interested in this one, only it seems to be a whole lot of Michigan State money is what I'm seeing here, Bryan Leonard. Are you in agreement here with this number that maybe Michigan State is the right side?
Yeah, Michigan State's definitely got the better players and they should be favored here, but it's gone a little bit past what I expected it to be. I only made it 6, so the value is showing a little bit on Colorado. That said, not sure I want to back the Buffaloes here. When you take a look at the tempo rankings, both teams are basically the same. Michigan State 139, 166 for Colorado. We do have a concern with one of the better players for Michigan State, Jace Richardson. He's questionable right now. He's one of the 3 major playmakers on this team. He's actually, when you take a look at the stats for the season, he's probably their second or third best player. So he's key to him being in the lineup here for Michigan State. I wouldn't want to lay this number without him being there. Colorado's a team that really doesn't have the playmakers that Michigan State does. So there's a big edge in the backcourt, at least in my mind, for the Spartans in this one. But as I said, the line's a little bit higher than what I would like to play. If I had to play it, I'd play Michigan State. But luckily, we don't have to play it. So this is one that I'll probably be sitting out, unless I do get the Richardson news that he will be playing and the line doesn't move up any longer.
Yeah, I mean, this is what, the 5 o'clock Eastern time tip-off here, Trig, for the Maui Invitational, a tournament which will be going bye-bye soon enough. But this is kind of looks like the last hurrah for getting all of these big blue bloods and all these big programs out on the island here. Are you shocked with how big this number is? Are the Spartans worthy of this number here for you to lay it?
I'm not going to lay this number. I agree with Bryan. Like, I like the Michigan State side, but the number is definitely a little bit out of control. I actually am right sort of in line with him in the 6 range with Michigan State. So my number likes Colorado, but I don't really like Colorado. That's kind of why this was an easy pass for me. Like Bryan, I'm not a believer in their roster. You know, this was a team that last year, Tristan Da Silva, KJ Simpson, Eddie Lampkin, who's now in Syracuse, you know, some good players, and they really didn't reload with the same type of talent. You know, they went to the D2 ranks. I believe they have an NAIA guy in there. Not just, and that's where I'm kind of, you know, looking at them in the context of like the Big 12. I expect this team to be near the bottom of the Big 12 this year. So yeah, I don't really want to spend more time. You know, there's so many games today that I have opinions on that I'll just leave it there. I'm not a believer in this Colorado team, but I'm not going to get the number, you know, that I would want to fade them here. So an easy pass for me, Joe.
All right, easy pass on that. Total also hovering around that 144.5 mark. But let me ask you this here, Bryan. If you've got a number there looking at 6, if we watch this game early and let's say we're able to get a Michigan at a less than 6 number there early in the first half, is it worth keeping an eye on and maybe placing the wager if you get it at a better number in game?
Yeah, you're talking live, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, if you could get it and it's not too far of a deficit for them at that point, when you get that number, I would bet on that. It's unfortunately when you've got so many games, you are going to have some that just are really close to the number you're looking at, and we're going to talk about one in a minute. But yeah, I prefer the Michigan State side. I would rather lay a lesser number than what they have here. So, yeah, that's another way to tackle it.
Keeping an eye on it. 5 o'clock Eastern time, guys, is when Michigan State and Colorado is tipping there. We also have Clemson taking on the Dons here in an interesting matchup here, and interesting number on this one too. And Trig, let me go back to you on this one, because Clemson, a little ACC team, not exactly the same team that we've seen in years past, but it's certainly a low enough number. It feels like a pick'em spot, but is it in your mind?
Yeah, I like Clemson in this game. I've come around quicker on this Clemson team than I thought I would. So you mentioned, of course, the guys that they lost, an Elite Eight team from last year. So I was just kind of like by default, down on them coming into this season for that reason. But I see, this is an example of a team that I like the guys that they brought in. I think they're working a little bit. So, of course, Chase Hunter is still there. But Lakin's been very impressive to me. I know they had the loss to Boise, but I'm kind of willing to let that slide at this point. The biggest thing here, so I was on San Francisco in their most recent game against Memphis and saw some things that really concerned me, specifically in the second half of that game when San Francisco blew a 9-point lead, could not figure out how to score. And that's where I look at this game and I say, okay, Clemson's probably going to get some easy buckets at the rim. That the Lakin Shiflin duo in there sets up nicely for them to score at the rim. San Francisco is not going to be able to shoot their way like that. That's kind of what happened against Memphis. They had a lead, everything was going well, and when they got behind, they couldn't really hit shots, and they really haven't hit shots all season. And so as I'm sitting there with my San Fran ticket and saying, okay, I think I have a loss coming here, it kind of hit me. This might not be the team that I want against like the power conference opposition that has some size that's going to force them out to the perimeter because they don't have the shooters to beat a team like that. That's kind of where I'm at with this one. So yeah, I guess just because, maybe out of stubbornness, like I didn't want to lose with San Fran and then lose again going against them. It's just like that to me is like a no-no a little bit, but Bryan L is a fantastic coach. I've kind of every year he's been in the ACC. I feel like I upgrade him from a coaching standpoint, and really none bigger than last year when he gets that Clemson team as far as he did. So it would be Clemson or pass for me here, but this one did not make my card.
It's interesting, Brian, because you got Clemson lost by 13 to Boise State, and Boise State lost by 11 to the Dons of San Francisco. But the Dons, I don't think, have played any games outside of the Bay Area. So this is a little bit of a different situation here in this tournament kicking off in Daytona Beach. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, from a pure power rating standpoint, I think the line is right on here. But I'm like Treg. I like this Clemson team a little bit better. I take a look at San Francisco. They got some pretty good scorers on the team, but they don't have much playmaking, and they're not a good rebounding team. And when you take a look at Lakin and Shefflin, those are two excellent rebounders for Clemson. So unless they get into foul trouble, I think Clemson dominates the glass here. When you take a look at from the stats, they've got the best three players in this game. Zachary's very good also. So you've got the three best players. You've got two dominant guys underneath for the rebounds. Unless San Francisco could just go off shooting-wise in this game, I think Clemson's probably the team to beat. Clemson's a slower pace. They're 303 in pace, whereas San Francisco's 183. So San Francisco will probably try to run a little bit more than what Clemson likes. But if Clemson can dictate the half-court game, I think they've got a big edge in the half-court. We'll have to see how the game plays out. But even though my power ratings don't show anything, I think the matchup favors Clemson in this one. So I would prefer that side.
Yeah, even though it's not it's kind of a road environment for both, but not really for Clemson, who's had a little more experience playing away from home. I mean, this is the first trip outside of the Bay Area. They did play one game at the Chase Center, I believe, as well. Now they're flying to Daytona Beach, which alone is going to be interesting to see how they do. Small number, though, 2.5.
Yeah,
and one
other
Clemson.
thing I want to Joe, one other thing I meant to say during the breakdown is they've turned the ball over way too much. Like, that's a huge concern against Clemson. They started to turn it over against Memphis, and like that would be, that would be a concern for me here. Clemson's just being more prepared, having the post sort of locked down a little bit, and then San Francisco starts turning the ball over. Not a good recipe for success. So Clemson or pass. Yeah,
definitely not a recipe for success. But man, the ACC has just sucked in these non-conference games to this point. By the way,
bad at sports across the board, Joe.
Not good, ACC. Not good. All right, shout out to Big Daddy Bill Sandoval hanging out. Slick Vic in there. Good to see you guys hanging out with us. Don't forget, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Become part of the WagerTalk TV family. We have a few more games we're going to break down for you here. And then, of course, we'll take some questions, get a couple of best bets from these guys. If you have a game on the card here tonight you want to learn a little more about, or you'd like their thoughts on, drop them in the chat room, because I am fairly certain there's going to be a number of people looking at Auburn and Iowa State tonight, and why not? This should be one hell of a game. I quite am looking forward to this litmus test here tonight, because quite honestly, Trig, that's what it is for both of these teams. I think at this point, it's a pretty good barometer as, is Bruce Pearl, is this team of Auburn as good as we think they are? And Iowa State, do they have enough shooting? Can they cause enough turnovers and aggravation here for Auburn to actually muck this up and win it? How are you leaning one way or the other here?
So I think I've upgraded Auburn to number one in my power ratings right now, in terms of like, and that doesn't mean a ton. Like, it's still very early in the season, but just, going back to the beginning of the year, I was higher on Houston than UConn. UConn was a team that I was kind of like willing to fade, and will look for a spot to fade at some point, though I didn't really want to today. But then, of course, Auburn goes out and beats Houston, and it's just looked so good that I think that I have to put them one right now. I'm still a little bit more confident in Auburn than Kansas or Gonzaga. So I'm not going to bet against the team that I think is the best team in the country right now. Or you'd have to give me a far bigger number to do so. Now, the interesting thing is my number likes Iowa State here, because on a neutral, I make this closer to a pick. But this is not a great matchup, in my opinion, for Iowa State. Couple reasons. One, they want to get to the rim. Like you were saying, does Iowa State have the three-point shooting to win this game? Absolutely not. That's not their forte. Yeah. They're, I believe, on the season so far, they're only 31% from three. So I don't think Iowa State's going to come in and just light this up from three. They want to get to the rim, and Auburn's as good as any team in the country at defending the paint. So, now don't get me wrong. Iowa State's a fantastic basketball team. Like, they can absolutely find a way. I mean, they're right in the mix with those elite teams in the country. It's part of the reason I have no interest laying points against them, but I do think this matchup favors Auburn quite a bit here. And let's put it this way. If Auburn blows them out, I'm not going to be surprised. If Iowa State were to significantly control a game against Auburn, I would be pretty surprised. So the lean has to be Auburn here for me.
So first big test here, Bri, for Iowa State, right? I mean, nothing against, Kansas City, IUPUI, or Mississippi Valley State, but Auburn, to Trig's point, is a different animal here, and a lot of people feel that, yes, this and Gonzaga are the two best teams in the country, but styles make fights, right? So can Iowa State get this to a dogfight here? Because they're not going to win a shootout in any way, shape, or form, I don't think. Who do you give the advantage to in this one?
Yeah, very much like Trig here, where I have Auburn favored, but not to this number, not to this extent of the number 4. I've got these ranked as two of the top 7 teams in the country right now. From a tempo rank, 119 for Auburn, 141 for Iowa State. Johnny Broome for Auburn has just been terrific all season long.
He's 90, his numbers,
right? What's that?
He's been in college, it feels like, since the 1990s. Like, he has been around forever.
I was in the 80s, and I can't play anymore. But yeah, He's just a terrific player, a great scoring player, great rebounder. And for this Auburn team, that they've got some guys on the team that aren't very good rebounders, so that's always a concern here. But they've got really good playmaking, as does Iowa State. But when I look at this, Iowa State's got some very good players also. Lipsey's been terrific on the season, great playmaker for them, great scorer. So you've got two teams that have a lot of talent here, and I just don't see the differential where it is now. There's been money that has come in on Auburn, and I fully understand it. As Trig pointed out, he's had him number 1. I got him number 5, so it's a very good team. The step up for Iowa State obviously is a concern here, and I think that's why there's been some money taken for Auburn. We've already seen Auburn play against better teams than what Iowa State has shown, but my numbers, when I get a number that's 3 points off, I can't go against it. But this is going to be a game where it should be a lot of excitement. Two of the better defenses, by the way, in college basketball. I've got Auburn ranked 7th, Iowa State ranked 2nd. So it should be a very good ball game. And but Iowa State's going to have to shoot a little better than what they have in order to get this victory. But it'll be a fun game to watch. But unfortunately, I'll be sitting on the sideline.
To your point, Brian, I'm seeing both of these teams ranked top 5 in Ken Palm offense and defensive efficiency. And Trig, to your point, I mean, Auburn's hitting 37% from 3, and 47% of their shots come from 3. So if they're hitting shots, how in the hell is Iowa State going to keep up with them is the big question here. And by the way, Johnny Broom, 50% from 3 so far in the season. So he's absolutely seeing it and just hammering it home for Auburn. But to your point, Brian, with these defensive teams, the total seems to have dropped 147.5. I'm seeing 145 now. So is there a correlation to Auburn and the over and Iowa State to the under, or you think the under might not be a bad look in this one either?
Yeah, the under makes more sense to me. I don't know if the Auburn would be correlated to the over because Iowa State probably won't let them get too good of shots. Yeah, the under makes a lot of sense to me.
Yep. And that's
yeah,
where
I mean,
there's
a scenario here. There's a scenario here where if Iowa State isn't knocking shots down, they struggle to get to 60, in my opinion.
60, right.
Because I really think they're going to have a hard time scoring at the rim. So I would lean under as well.
Yep, makes total sense in that one there, guys. That game should be a fun one. A lot of eyes on that game tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern time. We got another interesting game coming up. We'll break down before we get to a couple of best bets. Why don't we talk a little North Carolina here, a little late night action out in Maui as they're going to be taking on the Dayton Flyers, a team, Trig, I believe that you went to go see there at one of the more famous arenas there for college hoops. We're seeing now some interesting movement on the total, but this is going to be the last game of the night here. I don't know. A lot of questions about this UNC team. Trig, are you buying them? Are you not buying them this year? What do you think we're going to get? No Baycott anymore.
Yeah. So first of all, Joe, yes, I've been to, I think now I'm right at about 50 different venues. University of Dayton Arena is probably in my top 5 at this point. It doesn't really apply here, but phenomenal place if you get a chance to check out a basketball game. As far as Dayton is concerned, though, like, this is like it's almost the same thing in every game we've talked about so far. And it's, these big sort of marquee matchup, neutral court type games. My number disagrees with the way I would want to play this game. And like, I had this spot circled 3 weeks ago. Okay. Like, Dayton is not a team that I'm very high on this year. And I'll explain why. And then maybe Brian can kind of give me some insight is if I should be betting North Carolina here, because you lose Deron Holmes from Dayton, okay? He was so good on both ends of the floor that not only did he shore up that rim defense, but he spaced everything out in the manner it needed to be for Dayton's offense to run the way it ran last year, which was hitting threes at like a top 10, top 15 rate for most of the season. And then, of course, Holmes was just a monster inside when he got the ball. Zed Key comes in from Ohio State. He can do some of those things, offensively, but certainly doesn't. He's just not the player that Holmes was. And so when I look at this Dayton team, yes, they're like 5-0. They're blasting all of these lesser teams, but that's going to come back to bite them at some point. And weeks ago, I said this is probably the spot where they have a hard time, with players that are just better than what they've played so far, guys that can space the floor a little bit. And that's where because if you look, I mean, they're not hitting threes. I think coming into this game, just 31% from three on the season. That's outside the top 250. This was an elite 3-point shooting team for most of the year last year. And so that's a concern. That being said, I'm just not fully sold on North Carolina. So I don't know that I want to lay 8.5 with North Carolina here. I think if this had been in like the range I hoped for, where it was like North Carolina -5 or, maybe Dayton getting more love off of that 5-0 start, I'd be willing to lay it with the Tar Heels. At 8.5, that's just too many, because at the end of the day, Anthony Grant's still a great coach. This Dayton team still has players. They did bring in Posh Alexander, who's just a thorn in your side if you have to play against him. Yeah, he's just he'll lock down your best player, and that was a good addition. Long term, I'm out on this Dayton team. I'll probably find a spot to play against them in Maui over the next 3 days. Unfortunately, this one's not going to be it, but still a lean to the Tar Heels for that reason.
Yeah, we've seen North Carolina playing some track meets here, Brian Leonard. They don't appear to have a problem to get out and run. Maybe Dayton tries to slow it down, or maybe Dayton just tries to run. We usually get some soft rims and some big scores in this field here out in Hawaii late night. Are you leaning towards more possessions, more points, or are you leaning on the side in this one?
Well, you talked about a correlated parlay in the last game to this one here. I think it is correlated. You take a look at the tempo rank. Dayton's 318, and North Carolina's 28. So North Carolina wants to get out and run. Dayton wants to slow them down. As Trigg pointed out, Key and Alexander have been very good for Dayton. But if you take a look at the talent that North Carolina has, they have the better talent. And if you've got the better talent that wants to run, I would think that shows up while backing them is the way I want to play the game. Now, my power rating is only 7. So kind of like Trigg, I want to play North Carolina, but my numbers aren't showing it. But I could see North Carolina getting away from this game. They've got really good playmakers on this team that could run the court. RJ Davis has been terrific all the season. He averages 32.6 minutes a game. That's by far the most for either team here. So I like the North Carolina side. The line's a little bit too much. If I can get this thing down to maybe 7.5, I might play North Carolina. But if I am playing North Carolina, I may parlay that with the over here. As I mentioned, they want to get out and run. Dayton is more of a team that wants to play the half court. I don't think they could do it against a better and a really pretty good sized North Carolina team here. So that's the way I'm taking a look at this one.
Correlated up, yep. North Carolina to an over, Dayton to an under in this one. Again, that's the late night special, guys. 11:30 Eastern time is the slated tip there out in Hawaii. But it is time to see if these guys have a game circled on a card they like a little bit more than the rest. And Trigg, no doubt you've got one ready for us here today on this card. Who might you be leaning to here? Because I know it ain't Siena.
No, they had a rough morning out there. I think they stayed in bed for their 11 o'clock tip this morning. But yeah, no. So my best bet for the show, if you caught WagerTalk today, it's going to be the same one because it's a client play. I'm going to give it out here for free, and it's also a tip that goes around 5:30 Eastern. So I like Longwood plus 10.5. They are playing in the Virgin Islands against Kansas State. This is the final day of a 4-day multi-team event, which means three games in 4 days. And, I've split so far with Longwood. I had them with their great upset win over UAB on Friday. And then I was on them yesterday in a game that didn't really go their way against McNeese State, a game that I felt like they just they were 6-0 going into yesterday's game, and I feel like they were maybe due a little bit of a dud, and that was it. Played a really poor first half, uncharacteristic turnovers, and just McNeese State shot 61.6%. But some of that was just a lot of good looks, and like I said, not the effort defensively that I've seen from Longwood throughout the course of this season. And again, I'll chalk it up to maybe a bad travel spot. I got to see them play in Binghamton on Tuesday night, so they go from Virginia to Binghamton, down to the Virgin Islands. It's tough, but again, I think they kind of went to sleep in the second half yesterday. And so now I think they maybe bounce back against the Power 5 team. Listen, a team like Longwood, you don't get many cracks at a Kansas State. So right there, I got to think that they're a little bit more motivated than they were yesterday. Whereas on the flip side, Joe, Kansas State, they played the late game yesterday. So that they didn't get done until after 10 Eastern, where they played a hard-fought battle with Liberty, came up short, lost the game by 2. And now you're asking this team to turn around in a 5 p.m. Eastern start, the final day of a multi-team event, and win by more than 10 against a quality team. I can't see that happening. Especially when you consider the fact that Kansas State has struggled with weak opposition all season long. A 2-point lead over Mississippi Valley State at halftime, that's awful. That can't happen, right? And even Cleveland State lost their whole team last year, from last year to this year pretty much. And that was a 13-point game. I think Kansas State was like a 24-point favorite in that game. The George Washington game on Friday, they blew like a 20-point lead in about 10 minutes. GW had it down to 4, and then they sort of got their footing back and ended up winning the game. But that's not a great team either. I think you look at some of the guys that were brought in. Coleman Hawkins has not looked super dominant. Doug McDaniel hasn't been the dynamic playmaker that he was for Michigan last year. And it's like, Jerome Tang's an absolute stud of a coach. Like he's a tremendous coach. But I'm starting to look at this roster, and I'm not really seeing it right now from a talent standpoint in terms of how they're playing. Like I'm not saying like Hawkins and Doug McDaniel aren't great talents on paper, but you can't just roll the ball out and play. And you got to start to wonder how committed they were this summer. Like it's just, they haven't really looked like they did at their previous stops. And if those two aren't like balling out for this Kansas State team, it's going to be a long year in the Big 12. And again, they could get it right at some point, but I don't know if they're getting it right in the Virgin Islands on what's essentially a vacation, right? Like a lot of these things it's team building as much as it is playing basketball. 3 games in 4 days. I just think this game means more to Longwood. You're going to give me 10.5 points. This is a well-coached team. I think they've had 8 or 9 players. Their rotation has played every single game this year exactly the same. They've had no injuries. So same 8 or 9 guys playing in the same rotations every single game so far this season. I think yesterday was an outlier for Longwood, if you will. They've played very strong in every other game. 6-1 so far. They're going to give Kansas State a game today, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won this game. But if they don't, I think they're right there, and 10.5 should be an easy win. So 4% play, Longwood Lancers plus 10.5, Virgin Islands, 5:30 p.m. Eastern.
Get it going, guys. Take those points. Longwood taking on K-State. Make sure you visit Trig over at WagerTalk.com. Brian Leonard as well, locked and loaded, no doubt, here for tonight. Brian, tell the folks what you got and drop us a best bet here tonight on the card.
Yeah, best bet's going to be in hockey. I've got a nice 3% play out tonight. That's my top play. I do have one college play I give clients that have signed up for the season. But that's what I've got going today. My top play is in the NHL. I'm going to take a look at this tournament down in Fort Myers, Suncoast Credit Union. Yep. First game goes off at 3 p.m. Pacific. That's Michigan and Virginia Tech. Line open Michigan around 11, maybe 11.5. Money's come in a little bit on Virginia Tech here. I'm not seeing it from what I'm looking at. I look at these two teams, and I've got a Michigan team who I have ranked 22nd. Virginia Tech team ranked middle of the pack this year. I really like the Michigan defense. I got them ranked in the top 20, whereas Virginia Tech's at 183. So you got a team playing on a foreign courts for both of them. It plays the much better defense. In fact, I've got Michigan's offense much better also. And when I take a look at the Michigan players, top to bottom, the guys are going to get the minutes. They're much more talented than what Virginia Tech has had. I'm looking at the Virginia Tech lineup, and they just don't have the talent that Michigan does. And it's so early in the season, it hasn't really shown anything as of yet. But Michigan's got a team where they could go pretty deep here with the better players. In fact, I've got them with like 7 guys better than anybody that Virginia Tech's got when you take a look at what they've done so far from a performance rating standpoint. I like Trey Donaldson. He's a great playmaker. But for the most part, it's a depth situation for Michigan. I think they're much deeper than Virginia Tech has right now. And it's a team that can play fast as well as slow. And Virginia Tech wants to slow you down. They're 333rd in true tempo. So they want to play a half-court game with Michigan. And as we've seen out of Michigan over the last few years, they can do that. Michigan's one of those teams that could just get out and run or play the half-court game. The line being down, I'm even seeing a 10 in one spot right now. I made it 13, and that doesn't include what I think is a good advantage on Michigan in the depth side. So the farther this game goes on, the deeper that both teams have to go to the bench, the better it is for Michigan. So I'll lay the number here with the Wolverines.
All right, laying it with Michigan in that one for Brian Leonard. Again, both Adam Trigger and Brian Leonard, best bets locked, loaded, ready, and available over at WagerTalk.com. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. My best bet here tonight is I have no idea why people keep laying double digits with Minnesota. They have yet to actually beat anybody by more than what the line is tonight against Central Michigan, which is 13.5. And yet here we are again. Now, if you'll remember, Central Michigan actually went toe-to-toe with Marquette and kept it close. They were getting 26.5 points there, and they covered that one pretty simple. And I think Marquette is a much better offense than the slow-ass Minnesota team here that, once again, struggling with injuries and struggling scoring. So in a low-possession game, you want this team to keep winning by double digits like this? I don't think it's going to happen. Central Michigan 3-0 against the number on the road, and they are actually going pretty well. I think they're just about even in a point differential thus far this season. I'll take the 13.5. You want to keep giving me points against Minnesota in the double-digit category? I'll keep taking them there. Central Michigan for me tonight in that 8 o'clock Eastern time tip for that one. That'll do it here, guys. Get ready, of course, NBA tip-off show coming up 3:30 Eastern time. Steve Merrill, Rob Vino, and Ski Profit will be in the chairs here. Get your questions ready. And don't forget, make sure you come back and join us for that. In the meantime, on behalf of Brian and Adam Trigger, best of luck on the college basketball slate. We'll be back tomorrow again, same time here on Wager Talk TV. Good luck with those plays, guys. We'll see you again soon.